So I'll put the same disclaimer before speaking that I have been using with my intro students the last 3 weeks, which is that this is a tremendously exciting moment in my life. For those of you who don't know, we welcomed our first child a month ago on Tuesday. Little girl, Grace Cecilia, Rena Shoshana in Hebrew. She is incredibly sweet and incredibly cute, which is a good thing because she is also a sleep terrorist. And she, I swear, she just fakes us out, right? She looks like she's so peaceful and she's asleep in my arms and it's the best. And I put her down and I'm drifting off and I'm just about there. And then she screams again. And repeat cycle all the way through the night, which I know that most of you in the room have experienced, and everybody who's been elbowing me for the last 9 months and saying, stock up on sleep now, and I kind of smiled and didn't know what to say. You were right. You were all right. But she is very, very sweet, and Anne is doing well, and we are doing well, and we have been feeling the love from a lot of different communities in a lot of different places, including from down here. So thank you to all of you who have had good thoughts and good prayers in our direction over the journey to get here and over the last few weeks. And if I trail off in mid-sentence, like there's just an ellipse in the sermon and start to stare toward the light, you'll know why. And I'll promise to be more cogent and better rested next time, though I don't know if I can make that promise. So a number of years ago, my parents were taking a trip to Israel, and they came back, and my mother presented me with a wrapped box of a present that she had gotten for me and transported back 10,000 miles. And I eagerly unwrapped the box and opened it, and it was this. I said, Mom, thank you, a coaster. You really, really shouldn't have. And just one. And she said, look at it closely. And it's got a phrase on here, a line from Rabbi Nachman, one of the great Hasidic sages. It says, Im atem ma'aminim she'afshar lekalkel, ha'aminu she'afshar gam letaken. If you believe that it's possible for things to break, also believe that it's possible for them to be fixed. And I've had it, we have a little picture ledge right by the door. I've had it by my door maybe for the last 5 or 6 years, and it's often the last thing I look at before I go out to start the day. If you believe that it can break, also believe that it can be fixed. It's a really good present. And a piece of wisdom that I've been hanging on to and that's been keeping me afloat quite a lot these days. Today in the Hebrew calendar is a day which is all about brokenness. Today is the 17th of the Hebrew month of Tammuz. If this wasn't Shabbat, it would be a fast day. The fast is deferred to tomorrow, and Helene made sure to ask me to remind you that there is minyan, so if you really can't get enough CBI, please be back here tomorrow morning for minyan. Today is a fast day, commemorating the fact that 1,949 years ago today, the Romans broke through their siege of the walls of Jerusalem, and 3 weeks later, we would get to Tisha B'Av when they make it to the Temple Mount and burn and destroy our temple. In rabbinic memory, the 17th of Tammuz also commemorates the day on which Moses brought down the first set of tablets from Mount Sinai, and seeing the people worshiping at the golden calf, threw them down and smashed them in anger. Today in Jewish memory, today in the Jewish psyche, is all about things getting broken. Walls and cities, tablets, gifts from God. Today is all about breaking. And I want to suggest that in the moment in which these great breakings happened, the moment when the walls came tumbling down around the city, the moment in which Moses looked down and realized what he had done, seeing the shattered fragments of God's 10 Commandments at his feet, in that moment, I don't imagine that anybody who was present could imagine getting out of that state of brokenness, could imagine that actually something in the long term from that brokenness might actually plant seeds that would bear important fruit. The truth is had the Romans not broken through the walls, had the Romans not ultimately destroyed our temple, we wouldn't be sitting here. The Judaism that we practice today is a response to crisis. It's a response to catastrophe. It's a people's unwillingness to die out just because its physical capital and its physical prayer space went away. It's the result of the brilliant innovation of the rabbis who said this tradition can evolve, can become something portable that we can carry with us wherever we are, something which can thrive where every other ancient civilization of its time died out. We are still here. The breaking, in some ways, made possible the future thriving. And with the breaking of the tablets by Moses, that breaking of the first set of tablets inscribed by God led to a second set of tablets. And that second set of tablets was slightly different than the first, because the Torah says the first tablets were inscribed by God, the second tablets were inscribed by Moses at God's direction. The first tablets represent a law that was given directly from heaven, a perfect and complete divine law, which it turns out we were unable to sustain. The second tablets represent a divine human partnership, a coming together of God and of us to create mitzvot, to create commandments, to create guidelines for life that continue to be carried in our hearts and in our minds 3,000 years later. In a lot of ways, the breaking was a necessary precursor to a deeper healing, to a new possibility. I think about the way in which human life is opposite to almost everything else in the world when it comes to time. Everything physical in the world, given enough time, will break. Even the most grand cathedral, even the most beautiful building, the strongest tree, the mountains even, given enough time, will crumble away to dust. Time breaks things. That's the second law of thermodynamics. Chaos increases. It never decreases. Eventually, every single one of your wine glasses will break if you buy them from IKEA even faster, but never, never will the shards come back together to make a wine glass. Things break over time. Things fall apart. Except when we're broken, when our hearts are hurting, what's the one and only prescription that actually works? What's the one and only medicine for grief and for brokenheartedness? Time. We function in the opposite way of virtually everything else. Everything else, given enough time, will increasingly break, will break into smaller and smaller pieces, will eventually vanish. We, when broken, given enough time, will put ourselves back together again, and often put ourselves back together again stronger than we were before. That's a remarkable feature of the human neshama. That's a remarkable feature of what it means to have a soul. And so I think about in these times which feel very broken, when hopelessness is easy and sometimes feels inevitable. And I think about, for all of us, who have had periods of time of brokenheartedness, that what I need to remind myself on this 17th of Tammuz is the wisdom of Rabbi Nachman. That if I believe it can break, that if I am able to fall into hopelessness, that I need to equally be open to the possibility that it can be healed. That I need to be equally open to the possibility that the brokenness need not last forever. I heard a presentation on Shavuot, which was 40 days ago today, by a Sikh woman, civil rights activist, and a documentary filmmaker named Valerie Kaur. I encourage you to check out her TED Talk after Shabbat. She's really remarkable. And her talk was entitled, "The Darkness of the Tomb or the Darkness of the Womb." It's a beautiful talk. She said, when you're in the dark, when you're in a place of brokenness, socially, individually, when we're in a place of brokenness, we assume that it's the darkness of the tomb. That all light is gone, that the world as we knew it is gone, that it's never going to get better. But the invitation is to consider whether it's possible that it's not the darkness of the tomb, but the darkness of the womb. The darkness of a world in preparation. The darkness of a space of growth. The darkness that precedes a great light and a new beginning. When we are in grief, to think this too will pass with time and something new can be born. When we are in despair, to say this is not how it needs to always be. Maybe this is just the last stages of labor before some great newness comes into the world. Today is a day that's all about brokenness, but brokenness should be an invitation to consider how we move from that back into wholeness. Rabbi Alan Liu, the author of a wonderful book on the High Holy Days, This is Real and You're Completely Unprepared. It's a rabbi who spent time as a Buddhist monk, says that the High Holy Days actually start today. High Holy Days don't start with Rosh Hashanah. They don't even start with the beginning of Elul. They start today because the process of putting our lives back together again begins in the brokenness. It begins when the walls fall. It begins when the tablets break. It begins by acknowledging that we're in the dark, but invites us to consider that darkness not as the darkness of a tomb, but as the darkness of a womb ready to give birth to a new world. Shabbat Shalom.